show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings and, of course, to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io.
Hey, welcome to today's episode. We have a special guest, Mike Cavaggioni. I guess that's right. He might yell at me later, but he might correct me. But we'll talk. We're gonna have a real conversation about podcasting, military. Who knows what we're gonna talk about today? Special guest today. Hope you stay tuned for the full episode. Mike Cavaggioni. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Good job. No yelling. No yelling required.
No yelling. When I feel sometimes like, what's the word I'm looking for? When I'm not confident with like last name, like I have to like project it out.
Yeah. Oh no. I was saying like you don't need to worry about me yelling at you because you got it right.
Okay,
You're good. You're good.
I was going to say I have to sometimes project it out just to get it out right. But let's talk about. I want to talk about a little bit of everything because you're military. We have military. We have a flag behind you. How long? What military branch did you serve for? And how long did you serve for?
So the Navy, and for 20 years. I just recently, quote unquote, retired. I say it that way because August 1st is when I started my terminal leave and my skill bridge program, which is basically like an internship that I get to do while still getting paid by the Navy. All intents and purposes already out. December 1st is my actual retirement date, and that's when I'll start drawing my pension and everything else. But yeah, so 20 years.
That's a long time. Were you active duty?
Yeah, active duty the whole time. Yep.
Wow. That's a long time. That's a long time. Did you do real estate and the Navy? And how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so I only got into real estate about 2.5, 3 years ago. And actually, let me rewind that back or kind of take that back because it's actually been longer than that. It's just I took a very long pause from real estate from my first experience that I had with it. Okay. So yes, I bought my first property when I was 22 years old. When I was very young in the Navy, young E5, not making too much. I was married. My wife had a job as well, and things looked great. We bought a home. We bought the home in 2007, July of 2007. So yeah. So here we are. We're like, oh man, we got a good deal because it was listed at 265. I said, 250, and you pay all closing costs, and they were like, yes. And I'm like, look at that. Just like when I go to a car dealership, look at me making this deal in real estate, right? Save $15,000. I'm the man. We all know what happened a year later. And my property jumped up in value to about $300,000 within the first year, which was awesome. And I was like, this is fantastic. And then that bubble burst, and I short sold that home in 2012 for $157,000.
Wow.
So that really stung, and I lost my VA loan because of that, or at least I thought I did.
Yeah.
So I wound up not buying a house for a very long time. Actually, and during that process of while I was waiting before I even short sold the home, I rented it out because I couldn't sell it. I tried so much to sell it. It just wasn't going to happen. So I rented it out. I became a quote unquote accidental landlord and said, okay, I'm losing money on the house, but I get to keep it. So hopefully I can get the value will come back up. But after 4 years of doing that, and after I lost my renter and couldn't get another renter in there, and again, I was losing about just under $400 a month renting this property out. At the time I just got commissioned as an officer, so the pay was better, but it wasn't great. It was very hard to stay afloat and keep that property. So we decided to short sell it because I had literally just maxed out all my credit cards after I had paid them all off. So that was the beginning of what I call the the beginning of the beginning for me, right? Because that's where all of the debt problems and everything else I ran into earlier on in my life was really stemmed from that moment. So real estate left a bad taste in my mouth, and it was something I didn't really want to come back to or even talk about for a very long time. And so my wife and I, we moved into military housing, and we were trying to figure out what was going to work for us because we had, about $28,000 in credit card debt. We had a couple personal loans. I mean, when you add it all up, it's probably close to about $40,000 in debt with no assets under our name. We had vehicles, we had liabilities, but that was it. We decided that, when we knew we were going to come to Hawaii, that we wanted to pay off all of our debt, save up so we can buy a house again. Because we're like, if we're going to go to Hawaii, we want to buy a property. We want to have our little slice of paradise, right? So we started following like Dave Ramsey and all those other financial gurus and everything. We did the baby steps, and we paid off all of our debt. And we did this by doing we did the envelope method for one. And for those of you that don't know what that is, each time you get paid, you put your money into these different envelopes for different bills and debt and everything. And then we also did the debt snowball, where we paid off our higher interest debts and just chunked all of our leftover money into those. And then once that was paid off, dumped all of that into the next one, the next one, the next one, basically until it becomes an avalanche and you crush all your debt. So we did that. And then we said, okay, all the debt's paid off. Now, what are we going to do with this money that we were, this extra, quote unquote, extra money that we were using to pay off all of our debt? Let's save up. So in a 2-year period, we not only paid off all that debt, but we also managed to save about $40,000. And this was on one income, just my salary in the Navy. And I was losing about half of it too, because we were living in housing. So I didn't get to keep my allowance for housing. They took it like the entire amount for us to stay in housing, even though I could have rented out in town and actually pocketed some of that money. We chose to stay in housing because we liked the area, and it was just really good.
Well, what I really like at the beginning of your story is that, like, when you first buy a house, it's like, yeah, I'm top of the world, I know everything about it, and then you get hit in the face.
Yeah, no, it really, like, it was a punch in the face, man. And so we said, okay, we're gonna do this now again. We're gonna go buy a property. And when we got out here to Hawaii, long story short, I thought I didn't have my VA loan, right? So I was like, let's check, let's try. I applied for the VA loan, and of course they came back and said, hey, sir, we see that, this happened, this short sale back in 2012. If you want to get your VA loan eligibility back, you need to pay us $67,000 or something like that. And I was like, whoa, how's that supposed to happen? Yeah, we had 40K in the bank. So I was like, okay, well, that's out. So we were like, okay, if we do an FHA loan, we could, do 3.5%. That would have been great if I would have known what an FHA loan was back then. But I didn't, because I was very inexperienced. So I kind of pushed back and went to the VA and said, hey, can you just go and check my eligibility? Because they were just checking the notes that there was the short sale and everything. I said, can you go and pull and check for my certificate of eligibility? They said, sure, no problem. So they, a week later, they called me back and said, sir, you're in luck. The bank that you short sold with, or the lender that you had at the time when you short sold, didn't file their paperwork until the 181st day. Well, after 180 days, it voids the short sale when it comes to the VA loan eligibility. Like, they cannot take that away from me at that point, and the VA does not have to pay their guarantee. So because they filed a day late, the VA never had to pay that guarantee to them. So I had my full eligibility back. So I said, okay, someone's looking out for me because, I got punched in the face last time I tried to do this. So, okay, here we go. So we bought our house out here, and I'm like, great. Now we've paid off our debt. We bought the house we wanted, and we've got 40K in the bank. So we started using that for renovations. Went through that very fast. And, and we got our house looking the way that we wanted it to look. And said, okay, cool, settled down, doing my thing in the Navy, and ran into a buddy of mine that I haven't seen in a long time. And he said, he was talking to me about investing in real estate because it was something he was doing. At the time, he had like 27 doors or something like that. And it kind of triggered something in me where I remember the conversations I had with my uncle when I was a kid because he invested in real estate. And it made me think about it again. Like, man, maybe I should look into this again. And I started going to meetups, and I was like, okay, I got to get my wife on board because she still had that bad taste. She's like, no, no, no. What, like, remember what happened last time? We ain't gonna do it. I said, okay. Well, we set up a lunch date with my buddy and his wife, right? And we go over there, we have lunch, and I start pulling out some deals that I found, right? I ran the numbers and said, hey man, this looks great, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And he's looking over, he's like, hey, these two right here, these are great. Put in offers on those. I looked at my wife, and she looked at me. It was like one of those, like, moments. And I said, show her your portfolio, show her what you guys are working with. And she's looking through, she's like, wow. She's like, you guys make this much per month just for renting these properties out? And they're like, yeah. So she's like, maybe this is a thing. Maybe there's some merit here. So cool. I put in 2 offers. I get one to stick. And we buy this duplex in Chesapeake, Virginia. We closed on it. Now, this was the end of 2019 when I was working all this stuff, right? I just need another sip of this go-go juice.
Be good.
All right. So end of 2019 when we're doing this. And we closed on the property February 5th of 2020. Now, when I tell you I felt like the cards were stacked against me because what happened the very next month, I couldn't believe it. It's like, what the heck? I bought my first investment property and now the world just ended. I can't believe it. I had a tenant that couldn't pay rent, right? Because they lost their job because of COVID and all this. And I'm like, this is just a mess. Thankfully, my downstairs tenant was Section 8 and it was actually covering the mortgage and a majority of the expenses. So I wasn't cash flowing, but I wasn't cash flow negative either, like I was with my accidental investment, right? So I said, okay, we'll work this out. We'll get this figured out. And I wound up finding a program that actually back paid my tenant's rent and all the late fees. So I wound up selling the property a year later, but all in all, I cash flowed about $950 a month for the entire year that I had it. And then I sold it for about 15 or 16,000 more than what I paid for it. So all in all, it actually worked out pretty good. And then I took that money and I started going into real estate syndications as a limited partner. And that's what I do now.
Nice. That was
catch my breath.
Quite an avenue.
I'm from New York, man, and I'm a podcaster, so I like to talk. So you got to tell me to shut up.
I always make the joke. I'm like, yeah, like once those podcasters, man, you just get them going, and they don't shut up at all.
I'm telling you, man, you got to jump in there and say, hey, man, okay, it's all good.
Give you the signal.
Yeah, there you go. I thought you were telling me I was on mute right now. So see, I'm doing you a favor.
No, I gotta give you the signal. Like, hey, wrap it up.
Yeah. See that? You know what? I'm gonna start doing that as like my for my show as well, like a pre-chat. Like, hey, I'm gonna give you the signal. Like, hey, shut up, type deal. Nah, I ain't gonna do that. It's good stuff, man.
No, it's interesting to have the conversation just because a lot of people they get overwhelmed with. A lot of people get hit in the hand a lot too.
Yeah.
Tired landlord, they might lose it in 2008, and they just have that sour taste in their mouth. I literally talked to not a client, it was like a family member client that was in real estate. After 2008, they got wiped out and never jumped back into it. I'm like,
I mean, yeah, it's honestly, it took a lot for me to come back, and somehow in the journey of trying to convince my wife that this is a good idea, I was kind of also reconvincing myself that this was a good move to make. Yeah, because I still had that, the Jiminy Cricket on my shoulder saying, "You really think this is a good idea? Are you sure?" So there was a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah, it can definitely knock you out of the game. Like I talked to him. Like I said, my family lives here in California, and he's like, I don't even do real estate. And like what he's telling me was doing is like all the stuff we're doing right now, and like you could be doing the same thing you were doing back then, just right now. Like, and he's like, no, times have changed, and like he's kind of aged out of the techniques because he's used to like old strategies, and like times have changed. You got to do new strategies, new marketing techniques, and there's a lot more resources now to do real estate in general.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting avenue these days. It's a lot easier nowadays to get into entrepreneurship, real estate, and all that stuff with YouTube and Facebook groups and all that stuff than it was years ago.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that too, because like one of the things I tell people people that I coach or just people that I tell like on my podcast and stuff too is like, when you go to these real estate meetups, don't go talk to the person that's been doing this for 20 years and asking them for advice. Go talk to the person that started like last year or 2 years ago, because things have changed. Like the stuff that they did 20 years ago to get started is way different than what these other guys are doing nowadays to get started. So you have to evolve with the
Find
times
your
and be
path.
current. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You have to find your path, because like the other thing about real estate is that it's so broad. As many niches that there is out there, it's very, very broad. Like most people are like, oh, Airbnb is the way to go. Short-term rental, elderly homes, and like there's so many different avenues to go. Multifamily. Like you just gotta find one that works for you, that you understand, know the numbers, educate yourself on it, and just go.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that, man. Absolutely.
You just go. So let's talk a little about your podcast, man. So you have a podcast, Average Joe's Finances podcast. How many episodes are you in that? What's the whole focus on that podcast?
Yeah, so what's today? Tuesday. Episode 120 comes out tomorrow. I do 2 episodes a week now. Ever since I hit episode 100, I was just doing one a week, but now I do two because I've I've got so many interviews lined up. It's insane. So I've got to get this stuff pushed out. So I'm not telling people, oh yeah, your episode will be out in 6 months. I'd rather tell them 3 months. But yeah, so my podcast is about building financial independence, and that's through beating your debt, investing, real estate. And when I say investing, I'm talking about like paper stocks, or paper assets like the stock market and things like
Yeah.
that. But I've had people on that talk about all these different things. But for me personally, my main focus is real estate. So I do have a lot of real estate investors that come on that show, but I also have, financial advisors that come on the show and share some of the things that they do and some of their strategies. So that's actually been really cool to be able to touch all these different pieces. So my listeners, as they're listening, they can, figure out which is the right path for them and kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. And what I tell people too is like, hey, a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the show is kind of wave top stuff, to kind of pique your interest and figure out if this is the route you want to go. And
Yep.
if you do figure out the route you want to go, then talk to that person that I interviewed and go see what they're all about. And that's one of the reasons why I like to make sure I put all their information out there. I think that's super important that, people can make that choice because, it's one of the few things we have in life is our own decisions, right? A lot of times we get forced into things, but when you can, get to the point where you build up your wealth and you actually get to the point where you are financially independent, you get that true freedom. And that's why the motto for the podcast is beat debt, build your wealth, and control your future.
There you go. I've come to enjoy podcasting. I kind of did it as like something I need to do, and then I was like, yeah, it's getting kind of it's comfortable here. It's created a lot of good muscles. So like before I was afraid to like speak in front of crowds, and like now I'm like this muscle's gotten really strong these days. So now I'm not really afraid. I can kind of wing stuff. You already know what the message is because you say it a lot. And if somebody asks you like questions that you're not expecting, you already have that answered in your head because you've answered it 10, 15 times already. So you really grow that internal muscle of speaking, and it's a really good muscle to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think my podcast has helped me too with I've been speaking at real estate events as well, conferences and meetups and everything. Doing the podcast I think has been a super beneficial piece of that because I've always liked to talk. Like I said, I'm from New York. I'm a talker. Sometimes I don't know when to shut up, but at the same time, it's helped me be a little bit more articulate and make sure that I'm not wasting time and I'm getting the message out that I want to get out and not just filling it with fluff and words. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah. So this is the question for you. So what is the biggest benefit you've received from the podcast to date? 120
Uh,
episodes.
yeah. So the biggest benefit, again, I would say probably from the podcast itself isn't so much the speaking piece, it's the actual networking I got out of doing the podcast. The people that I've had come on the show that I still keep in touch with. I've gotten real estate deals out of it. I get so much deal flow in my inbox, and it's all thanks to the people that I've met through the show. and going to these different events where I'm actually talking about my podcast. But having that as it's more of a conversation starter for one, when I'm talking to other investors. Two, it gets people, thinking about it because they're like, oh, can I be a guest on your show? I talk about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. So even when I go out to networking events, it's also a great conversation starter for that. But at the same time, I got my first speaking at a conference gig thanks to my podcast. I brought somebody on the show that was starting a conference up, and they asked me to come speak, and I got to do that. It was really awesome, and I'm going to go speak at that conference again next year. So it's just the different opportunities that present themselves when you're a podcaster. And one of the things that I've actually talked about at some of these speaking engagements is why I think if you invest in real estate, why I think you should have a podcast. And this is one of the number one reasons.
I like having this conversation because not many people understand it, and me and you can have this conversation because we both have real estate and we have podcasts. So me and you can have this conversation. But I tell everybody, I'm like, having a podcast is a hack to a lot of things because like you can exchange value with high level people, and the value you exchange is having our conversation with them, and that's the value they get. It's recorded, it's put online, spread out to the interwebs in multiple different places. That's the value they get. The value you get is you now have the opportunity to speak to them, ask them questions you want to know, and you get to educate and learn from high level entrepreneurs and real estate people.
Yeah,
So
Daniel, what you just said there is 100% like what I was going after with that answer, right? Because I've talked to people that I know like charge $1,000 an hour for
mhm.
an hour of their time. And here I am, I get to sit down and have this conversation with them. And at the same time, I get to ask the questions that I want to ask. And that's one of the selfish things that we get as podcast hosts is that we get to ask the questions that we want to ask. It's one of the reasons why I don't like to have scripted questions. I
Yep.
want to like let the conversation flow similar to the way you do, which I love your format, right? It just makes it more enjoyable for both the guest and the host, right? To just have an awesome conversation. But at the same time, the value that you get out of just a standard conversation like this, it kind of destroys everything else, really. Like when you think about it, like if you were to just go watch a presentation online or something, you're getting somebody's true, authentic self when you're having just a genuine conversation like this, and you can't beat that. You can't even put a number on that, honestly.
Yeah, it's like 60 to 90 minutes, depending on your format, to extract all the information you can out of them. And it's a good time too. It's a good
Yeah,
time.
and you're getting the stuff that you want out of it, and then your audience gets that value as well because you're pulling that out, right? And they get to listen to this conversation and really get an understanding of the person that you're talking to and what they're all about. It's amazing, man. And that's why I love podcasting.
Yeah, yeah. I hope everybody here go starts a podcast because it's just and anybody here that starts a podcast, guess who's going to be on your show? You better call me and Mike here because we'll hop on your show. And that's one of the beauties about
Absolutely.
anybody. If you got 5 episodes, I'm gonna hop on. I don't care. I'd rather contribute to the cause. Contributing
Hey,
to
look,
the
man,
cause.
I'll tell you right off the bat too. When I first started my podcast, I had a lot of doubt, especially when I was looking at how many people were listening to it. And I was at the point where I was getting like 20 to 40 downloads a month, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like, and I started thinking about it. A buddy of mine actually put this in perspective for me. He said, "Hey, Mike," he's like, "think of 20 to 40 people in one room. What does that look like?" I said, "Well, that's a full classroom." I was like, it kind of dinged for me. I said, "Okay, cool." Even if you have like one, two, three people, you have somebody listening. I mean, you're making an impact, right? And I got to the point now where I'm getting like 12,000 downloads a month, which is awesome. I'm super thankful for that. But it's all thanks to the fact that I kept going, right? I didn't give up in that first 6 months where I thought, why am I wasting, quote unquote, wasting my time? But it wasn't a waste of time because I was getting so much out of it just from having these conversations. And then people started listening and realized, oh, they can get out of it too. They can receive. So
Yeah, there's it's one of those things that you got to be consistent, and you just gotta you can't quit. You can't quit on this stuff, especially stuff like this. You just gotta keep on producing it. I've convinced a lot of my. I've already helped like 3 or 4 people start podcasting in general, and I'm like, Just keep on doing it consistently. Just keep on going at it. You might not see results after year one. It might take 2 years, it might take 3 years, but just do it consistently and you'll get something out of it, whether it's your audience will get something out of it or you personally will get something out of it. Because that's the whole thing. Somebody will get something out of it.
Yeah.
So one of the coolest things is like I got to interview a lot of cool people already so far. So I'm like, man, if this is only a year in, who am I interviewing next year? Or will I bring them on again because I already have that relationship? Hey, let's have another conversation. Um, I really enjoy it, man. I commend everybody to go start a podcast. And if you can't take our word for it, go listen to somebody else. But take our word for it, man. It's a cool thing to do, and it's a cool thing to participate in. And you get a lot of value from it internally.
Yeah,
Um,
and you get to put yourself out there, you know, and like you said, it's helped you with speaking. I mean, that's huge, man. A lot of
yeah,
people have that trouble. I mean, I'm not sure if you are or not, but I mean, it sounded like before you started podcasting, you were an introvert, but you could still be an introvert and do a podcast. But you've explored a way to be able to get out there and talk to more people. And the value of just having a conversation is just so good, man.
yeah. If now we do a live event every year, we bring other speakers to speak at our events, and that's the fun part we do. So it's now creating its own thing. And I spoke in front of 300 people back in February, so that was interesting. It was the most people I ever
Awesome,
spoke in
man.
front of.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but
That's pretty dope.
it's pretty dope, man. And it's just like the how. Let me ask you this: how do you deal with imposter syndrome and like fear of doubt?
Oh man, I fight it every day, honestly. Like, you know, I always tell myself like, who the hell am I, right? As I'm sitting here doing this stuff and
Yeah,
you know, I have people reaching out to me, coming, you know, want to come on my show and stuff, and now I have a team that takes care of everything. And it's like, I look at that, I'm like, wow, like this is actually something. This is really cool. This is really fun. I'm truly enjoying myself. But still, who the hell am I? Right. So it is something that I do constantly battle with. And I think a lot of people do, especially when you really start getting successful at something. You'll look at your success and be like, why? How? How is this happening? Right. And I do every day. I still do that. And then I tell myself, no, you know, I worked very hard for this and I'm like really putting forth the effort to make this happen. So I deserve the success as I push forward. And I have to tell myself that otherwise I get locked up. I do suffer from that. And I think most, you know, creators or anybody, influencers, podcasters, creators, whatever term you want to use, I don't care how big you get, you're going to suffer from imposter syndrome. I'm pretty sure Grant Cardone still suffers from imposter syndrome. Sometimes he's like, man, well, maybe not anymore. You know, he wakes up and he's like, I'm going to go fly my private jet. But, it's just something that will always be there. I think in the back of my head. And it's something that I have to convince myself of all the time that, I am doing it. And I worked really hard to get there.
So I asked this question to somebody else recently, and they said that sometimes you have to give yourself grace as an entrepreneur because you could be your hardest critic.
100% fact. Yeah. And that's a great answer. Much shorter than what I just said, but yes.
Do you have tricks with burnout? Like, do you like follow a morning schedule? Do you do ice baths or anything like that? Coffee, do go juice.
I, I don't do ice baths. I do drink a lot of go-go juice, but that's just 20 years in the Navy, man. I mean, I can't help that's a habit I don't know if I'll ever be able to break. I've tried. I've gone like a day or two without coffee. And I started like getting shaky. So I don't know. I don't do the ice bath thing. I thought about starting that, but now I just focus on my schedule and time blocking. I try to make sure that I set aside certain times for specific tasks because I do get lost a lot when I start working on something. I'll lose track of time.
Mm.
So I set reminders on my calendar when I have another event coming up. So it pings me. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got 10 more minutes to finish this up. So I have to stop because I have this other event that's going to come up that I have to do. Because for a while I would time block stuff and I wouldn't have reminders. and I would be sitting here working on like a t-shirt design or something, right? For my store on my website. And I'm like, okay. And I'm just making all these, and before I knew it, I made like 10 designs, and I'm like, all right, cool. What time? Oh my God, I missed dinner, you know? Um, so yeah, I feel like sometimes you have to reel yourself back in. And
Mhm.
I do that by trying to stay focused on my schedule and try to keep that schedule.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to comment on your coffee because I'm not a coffee drinker at all. I do not like it, and every
Oh, good
time
for you, man.
it's like what else, and like I feel bad for you because the military, like I'm sure it's one of those things where like drink coffee before you wake up in the morning. I don't. Like, it's really
Yeah.
you're an officer too, so it's probably even worse.
Well, yeah. I mean, those late night watches, right? Where you have to get up and start standing a watch at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the coffee's been sitting out on the burner like all day. So like, you're pouring it, it's like this thick sludge, and you're like, oh, whatever, drinking it black and nothing else in it. Probably giving myself ulcers and everything else, other issues going on, right? With doing that. But it's funny because before I joined the Navy, I didn't drink coffee. I couldn't stand the taste of it. I couldn't stand the smell of it. And then after a couple years in, it just one day I was like, I'm feeling really tired and I don't want to drink an energy drink. So I just went and got some coffee, put a little sugar and milk in it, and said, okay, drink it. I was like, huh, this actually isn't too bad. And then the next day went back, got it again. Oh, this ain't too. And then before you know it, it's like two, three, 4 cups in the morning. I'm like, oh my God. I've got it down to about 2 or 3 a day now. I try not to do more than that, but I used to drink like, I mean, almost a pot of coffee a day while I was in, which is really unhealthy. So I've definitely cut down a lot for sure.
No, that's good, man. That's good. I want to kind of pivot into your real estate now syndication. LP, is that what you said?
Yep.
Limited
Yep.
partner.
Yep.
So, what does that look like? Are you trying? I'm not. This is my gray area. I'm not familiar with the limited partner space at all. So, are you like trying to find deals actively, or are you trying to find money? Like, what's your position as far as the LP?
Yeah, so being a limited partner, one of the beautiful things about that is no, I don't have to find the deals. I don't have to do anything with it. What I do is I team up with some other syndicators, the general partners, the GPs, that are going out there and finding the good deals. And when they do find one that piques my interest and the numbers look good, then I provide capital and I give them the money and I get a nice return, on the back end of that. So it's almost like lending, right? You're lending your money, you're lending capital to these operators that are purchasing these apartment buildings, right? So that's one way to look at it, as kind of being the bank, but not, because you do actually have ownership. You do get some of the tax benefits of it. So that is the big difference between just lending the money versus being an actual owner, and being a limited partner. That's why they're called limited partners, because you're still a partner, right? The only thing is like you don't get to vote on anything. You don't make any decisions. It's the people that are operating it, the 4 or 5 general partners that are making the deal happen. Those are the ones who are going to make sure everything gets done, the due diligence, the renovations, everything that gets done to that property. They're the ones taking care of it. So what I like about it though is when you find a good team that you're comfortable with, is it's very easy to say, take my money, because you know you just sit there. It's like investing. Like if you were to invest in a REIT, right? Uh, you have like some ownership, quote unquote, right? Because you own that piece of paper that says you have a piece of this real estate investment trust. But at the same time, you're not getting tax benefits from that like you do as an actual piece of an owner of that multifamily property. So I get to pretty much claim 80 to 90% of what I invest into one of those properties, I get to claim as a loss that year. So I'm paying pretty much no taxes on any of the gains that I get, within the first 1 or 2 years, which is absolutely awesome. So as you're doing that, if you keep investing in these deals and you keep
Yeah.
going in as an LP and you get yourself into a good cycle, you'll be at a point where like every 3 months you're getting a payout from an asset going full cycle and selling. You're also, saving a lot of money on your taxes because you just got into a new one that month as well. So yeah, it's a pretty good spot to be in if you want to be truly 100% passive. And that's what I like about it, because while I was still in the Navy, when I was trying to do my own thing as a real estate investor, it was very difficult when a problem came up or anything else, especially when I was here in Hawaii and my property was back in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I've
Yeah.
got somebody doing stuff there for me, sight unseen, sending me pictures, talking on the phone, telling me what's going on. And I'm just like, okay, here, I'll Venmo you or I'll send the money, whatever. And I'm just shelling out this money for all the stuff that needed to get done when I don't even have a chance to see what the property even looked like. I've never
Yeah.
saw that property. I bought it and sold it without ever seeing it, stepping foot in it, or ever being close to it. And that was because there was a travel ban. So I couldn't actually fly out there, even if I wanted to, because of COVID, right? So the fact that now I can invest in larger scale properties and get, you know, a better return than what I was getting on that single family or the duplex that I was invested in, to me, it was like night and day. Like this is much better. And that's why I stuck with it, and that's why I like it. I do want to go more active now that I retired. I've got some partners that I'm talking with, and we're working on looking for our own deals. And we're going to bring in a more experienced syndicator to do that with us once we're ready. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely love it, man. I feel like multifamily is one of the most recession resistant asset classes out there, because the value is determined based on the rent, so it's a pretty good spot to be in uncertain times like now.
Yeah. One thing I really like about that is it's really passive, especially if you have a 9 to 5. If you're busy in other places, it's a good opportunity to
Yep.
be in.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I've heard of this, but I never even know about it. I'm on the active side of a lot of things, so I'm very active in a lot of things. So the passive side doesn't really appeal to me, or I just don't even notice it. But I know like I said, for everybody listening, there's a million ways to make money in real estate. A million ways. So
Yeah, I
don't.
mean, I started off the active way, right? And now I do it this way for now again, but I want to get more active. I am active in real estate still because I'm a real estate agent out here in Hawaii. That's what I do for my capital, so to say, right? While I'm out here. So I'm at the point where my expenses are covered between my investments and my pension and everything. So I am quote unquote financially independent, but at the same time, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy real estate so much that I got my real estate license. I like to help people find properties, especially investors. I really love helping investors. But at the same time, you know, I'm at the point where I could take the money that I get from those commissions and just invest it. And that's what I love about it. And that's why I still do it. I get to do what I want to do. And that's what financial independence means to me. It's the actual independence piece. It's that freedom piece that I love.
Yeah, the freedom piece it's priceless when you don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning because you gotta be at work at 6 or 6:30. Like that's priceless. I always joke with my brothers 'cause I live in California. And they're like, "How do you deal with the LA traffic?" I'm like, "My commute to work is from the bed to the office chair, so it's really quick."
Oh man, it's funny because where I live at too, I live in Eva Beach, Hawaii, and having to commute to Pearl Harbor every day was the worst because the west to east traffic in the morning, and then also same going east to west during rush hour in the afternoon is just terrible.
Mhm.
But now my commute is I get up from my bed, I go downstairs to the coffee pot, make my coffee, and then go get ready for the morning, and I hop in my office in my house and start work. Or I can go to my office right down the street, the real estate office that we have. It's this tiny little, I think my closet might be the same size. But I have the choice. Do I want to go into that office or do I want to work from my home office today? And that to me is a thing of beauty.
Yep. What is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with?
Oh man. So I'm gonna go with a quote that I have up on my website. Um, it's by who is it? Um, well, it says work. What? How do I say it exactly? It's no opportunity. Opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And that is by Thomas Edison. And I like that because when you think about that opportunity itself, right? Uh, a lot of people will look at opportunity and say that's too much. I don't want to do that because it again, it's work, and I have to go out there and put this effort in. And to me, it resonates because I work very hard for the things that I enjoy and the things that I have in life, right? And a lot of these opportunities that come to me are because I busted my butt to to get to those opportunities. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people miss out on a lot of things in life because they don't put in the effort to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah. The other thing is that when you become free, the glasses of opportunities will get open and you see everything through a different
Yeah,
lens, and everything's opportunity at that point.
yeah, yeah.
And it gets pretty crazy. It gets pretty crazy where you get jumping around like, oh, shiny object, shiny object syndrome really kicks in at
Oh,
that point.
dude, I have that like something fierce. It's the worst because I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And, oh, ooh, what's this over here? Oh, squirrel. So it's sometimes it could be to your own detriment, right? So I try to. One of the things I'm reading Traction right now, and
Okay.
one of the things that book's made me realize is, there's certain things I need to kind of just let go of,
Hmm.
and there's certain things that I need to kind of nail down and focus more on. So it's helped me understand that it's okay to delegate more. It's okay to um, kind of just what's the right term I'm looking for? Um, I'm having a brain
This
fart.
delegation and optimism,
Outsource. So there's a lot,
optimization
yeah,
time. Yeah.
outsourcing certain things, um, and it's helped me realize that. And there's certain things that I was working on, certain projects that I was working on, that I completely scrapped because I'm like, is this really worth my time for
Yep.
what I'm trying to do? Is this going to provide the benefit that I'm looking for 5, 10, 15 years down the road? It's not, then I'm cutting it out. So that's one of the things that book's helping me realize.
Yeah, that book is a really good eye opener because it shows you that a lot of people are like, oh, work on your weaknesses. And that book's like, no, fuck your weaknesses, work on your strengths, and that's all you do.
Yep. Give the stuff that you're weak at to somebody else that's strong at it.
Yep.
So, and that's one of the things about the real estate game, man. It's a team sport. Yeah, yeah, sure, you could do it by yourself, but you're not going to scale as quickly as you can if you have a team. And when you could focus on your strengths and have somebody else focus on their strengths that complement your weaknesses, man, you can become an unstoppable force at that point.
Yeah, you definitely you get in the zone, per so to say, and it's really hard. Like it's really really hard. Like I think somebody tweeted this the other day. It's like it's really hard to make a million by yourself, but it's really easy to make it with a team. And
Yeah,
yeah, you just gotta
absolutely.
find the right people in place and put them in their positions and let them go to work. Let them go
Yeah,
to work.
love it.
So you said Traction. Is there any other books you can recommend to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Purple Bible is one that you hear all the time. So, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was like one of the catalysts for me. And I had invested in real estate before I even read that book. And, everybody kept saying, oh, you got to read it. You got to read it. You got to read it. I'm like, okay, well, this is the one that everybody talks about. Fine, I'll read it. Cause I don't like reading that much.
Me
It's
neither.
always like a forcing function. I have to force myself to do it. I'd rather listen to content or, watch a YouTube video or, there's a lot of times I'll be like, oh, let me look up this book on YouTube and have somebody read it to me or listen to the audiobook, right? And sometimes reading it actually it sticks more with me. So that was one of the first books that I really sat down and focused on when I read it. And it's the principles that just stick out to you. But then my favorite, absolute 100% favorite personal finance book or just something that's I believe is one of the most foundational books that you can read is Richest Man in Babylon. And for a book that was written in 1926, it really, to this day, the foundational principles that come out of that book can change your life. As a matter of fact, I have my kids reading a book. It's like the children's version of it right now. It's called uh, Grandpa's Fables. Something like I'd have to get the. I actually had the author on my podcast a while back, but he sent me some copies of the book, and I've got my kids reading it right now. Because when I read it, I told him, like, when I interviewed him, I said, "Dude, this book is like the children's version of The Richest Man in Babylon. I love it." And my kids are actually almost done with it right now. They read a portion of it every day. And now my youngest daughter comes to me and she wants to start a business selling slime and all this stuff. And she's like trying to give me like her business plan. She's like, yeah, if I get this costs this much, this costs this much. If I put this all together, I could sell it for this price and then I'll make this much profit. I'm like, and my 10-year-old's telling me this. I was like, this is amazing. So, but yeah, I think Richest Man in Babylon is my personal favorite when it comes to a foundational book to get you started on the right path.
Yeah, Rich Man in Babylon, I will 100% back that. I'm not a reader either, but I read the Purple Bible and I read Richest Man in Babylon.
And both of them are easy reads, and that's
Yeah,
why for me, I was like, this is traction. I'm having a little trouble getting through,
it's a little rough.
but the principles in it is so good. So I'm again, it's one of those things I have to force myself, but you know, those other books, it was so easy to just get lost while I was reading it and just keep going and going and going. I mean, I finished Richest Man in Babylon in 2 days, so it's just such an easy read.
Yeah, Rich Man in Babylon is easy. I would say the trick I use is I join book clubs and they break it down for me, so I don't have to read it.
There you go. It's a hey. So tell me what you thought about that chapter. Well, why don't you tell me first what you thought? No,
Don't
that's
give away
awesome,
my
man.
secrets now. Don't give away my secrets now.
Well, I
That's
thought
only,
you were going to say you joined a book club, so it forces you to read it. So you have to go there and explain it. But no, you're just like, yeah, just around the room. Yeah, everybody else go. I'll go last. And then you just sit there, take mental notes, and give your thoughts at the end. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to join a book club. It's a good idea.
I definitely cheated on that one, and I think it's funny too. I'm not a reader at all, but I'm like, oh, we're breaking down the book. All right, I'll make sure I'll be there for that one because I've been interested about hearing about this book.
Yeah, no, but see, that's one of the reasons why I say like all different kinds of content. Man, I consider myself a content sponge, so I listen to podcasts religiously. I barely ever listen to music anymore, except for like when I'm working out and I want to get a really good pump. Then I'm going to listen to some stuff that's going to like get me fired up. But other than that, dude, it's podcasts, audiobooks, or YouTube videos that are worth me actually watching or listening to. I've just turned myself into a content sponge. Absolutely love just absorbing as much as I can.
Yeah, there's so much content out there and so much good content. Um, I try and like limit who I take it from, just because like if you depending on who you're listening to, it might be you might be past that point.
Yeah,
You
no, it's true. But sometimes it's good to get good reminders.
Yeah,
There's certain things like I'll be watching something. It's like something that I'm kind of already well versed in, but I'll watch it anyway because I'm like, let me see if they're doing something different or if there's something that's changed in this since the last time I listened to something like this. There's certain channels out there like I love Graham Stephan's channel on YouTube. I kind of like Meet Kevin was a great thing for a while, but now it's kind of like devolved into like more politics and stuff. So I kind of I try to stay away from politics and things like that. I just focus on things that are going to make me better. So,
my tip for you is Hermosi, Alex Hermosi.
I've seen some Alex Hormozy stuff, but I'm not like, I guess a religious follower. So, I will definitely get into more of that.
It's good. His book is good, and his content he's producing is good. It's really on point to what I'm needing these days. So that's the kind of stuff that it's been reinforcing a lot of stuff that I'm doing right now. So I think
Yeah.
it's more on point with me. But see, you might enjoy that one. So Alex Ramosi. But
Yep. I wrote it down too, just to make sure I go look at more.
yeah. So where can people find you online? Where can people find your podcast? Um,
Yeah. So very simple. It's averagejoefinances.com. You can find me pretty much on all social media at Mike Cavaggioni, MikeCavaggioni. I also have MikeCavaggioni.com. That's also like a place where I have all my links and other websites all combined into one place just to make it easier for people to find my stuff. But yeah, I mean, feel free to follow me I'm even on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, the Facebook, all those places. LinkedIn, LinkedIn's a great place to be. But yeah, follow me on any social media platform and reach out if you have a question. Love to talk to you. I generally enjoy having these conversations, so definitely feel free to reach out anytime.
There you go. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for giving me your time, man. We had a great episode. I hope we covered a lot of different things, so I hope people found value. And go major point: go start a podcast. Start a podcast.
Yeah,
If
definitely.
you start a podcast from this episode, make sure you message both of us. All right, because I hope that's the big takeaway from this episode is go start a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, this has been a blast and my honor. So thank you for having me on.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.1listguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.
Thank you. Go check them out. Average Joe Finances on all platforms. Thanks for listening. Please check us out in the next episode. Please like and share and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review. And go to his podcast. Do the same. So appreciate you too. Thanks for coming on. See you on the next episode. Have a great day, guys.